Hello class, this is Professor Ron Sparks and welcome to week 2. It's a very critical week in this course because it lays the foundation for everything that follows. This week, the largest assignment, the Signature Sport Public Relations Campaign assignment, is now assigned. It's not due until week 8, but you'll be working on it throughout the course. And so we're going to lay the foundation for that process with a mini lecture on Chapter 2. This video is going to be much longer than the others. Usually I try to keep them to 5 or 6 minutes. This one's going to be longer, so bear with me. It's very important. Everyone must submit a sport public relations campaign assignment. It's worth 40 points. You might be able to pass the course without it, but you won't because it is required for everyone. And we are going to go through the detailed expectations for that assignment later on in this video, so you need to watch the whole thing. There are 2 chapters assigned in this week 2. On chapter 3 on social media, I'll let you go through that on your own, but let's get to chapter 2, which is integrating public relations with strategic management. And that's very important to the process of the campaign and through everything else we do in this course. So, the objectives of this video are to go through the sport public relations campaign assignment, but also in Chapter 2, we're going to articulate how public relations can drive strategic management. We're going to show how public relations contributes to brand management. We're going to describe the nature of integrated communications and the importance of storytelling, and we're going to specify the process associated with public relations communications, which includes programs and campaigns such as the one that you are going to be working on throughout this course. Strategic management is important to all sport organizations. The overall mission and vision, which have been determined by senior management, are really important, and everything that we do, all of our goals and objectives, all of our programs and campaigns must be in alignment with that overall mission and vision. Those strategies that they have defined that organize, coordinate, and activate all of the organization's assets must have our support, and everything we do must align with those strategic initiatives. You've seen a SWOT analysis, probably in another course, possibly you've worked on it in your career. It is part of the research process for strategic management and all programs and campaigns. It is an acronym that stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so the internal analysis consists of the organization's strengths and weaknesses, and the internal assessment attempts to identify what competencies and capabilities exist already within the organization and how effectively they're being employed to achieve the overall organizational goals. The external analysis, which consists of opportunities and threats, attempts to gauge what influences the environment over the organization has on its direction and ultimate success. So these external assessments, the opportunities and threats, consist of things like technological changes, long-term economic developments, social changes, industry trends, and the actions of competitors. So some people have taken threats and turned them into opportunities. Think about 2020 and 2021. What kind of threats jeopardize chances for sport organizations' success? Well, in Major League Baseball, spring training games and the rest of the season were eliminated with as far as fans and their following way back in March. And some industries were able to turn the coronavirus pandemic into opportunities. In sports, it was very, very difficult. Although I did hear one minor league player say, we had to miss games, and that was we weren't even really playing at all, and that was very difficult. But I chose to use that time to get with coaches and to work on specific things that I wouldn't have otherwise had time to improve in my game. So maybe sports will benefit from the additional time that players and organizations had to train. So they could turn a threat into an opportunity. So sometimes opportunities are turned into strengths if they're based on the things that we know that we can do well. Let's also talk about how branding is part of sport public relations. What are brands? Well, they are all of the representations, the logos, the expressions, all of the intellectual property that represent the brand, the marks, the intangible attributes, whether it's a product or an organization. These are the things that distinguish it from other entities in the minds of consumers. It could be the particular attributes of a fan base. It could be different ownership. These things are distinguishing it from other entities and other competitors. Brand building is, of course, fundamental to public relations. Now, brand communications consist of different things in branding, such as brand equity, brand identity. And we want to make sure in public relations that we are adopting a proactive public relations posture in which the organization concentrates on building and sustaining a desired reputation through successful relationship outcomes. That's different from reactive public relations, which is limited to responding to damaging issues such as crisis communications. These happen, but we're going to try to get out ahead and mitigate those with proper strategic management and planning. So, brand communications consists of good integrated communication. While we talked about the tensions that exist sometimes between sales and marketing, there's tensions that also exist sometimes between the two functions of sport marketing and sport public relations. But integrated communications brings the two together. It's the use of public relations along with marketing functions such as advertising, promotion, and other tools, and they tend to shape public opinion and deliver audience actions, but they do it together. One of the things that we use in public relations, and perhaps the most powerful form of communication, is storytelling. It's especially powerful within sport with its innately emotional elements. When we think of integrated communications, it entails a synergistic approach to communications that allows brand-related messages to be delivered through multiple functions such as marketing and public relations. But storytelling was introduced in Chapter 1, and it is critical to the success of all of our public relations campaigns. Think about what we get to experience in sports. Our stakeholders deal with winning and losing and sports being consumed as it is produced. So we don't know what emotions are coming tomorrow, but we need to take advantage of telling the proper story. So public relations professionals must learn how to make people laugh and cry every day. Public relations must get comfortable with a balance of facts and emotions. We must focus our stories around heroes. Think about all the heroes that sport public relations get to work with. And there's conflict in our work, and storytelling may be uniquely powerful within sport because of the innately emotional aspects of winning and losing. Our book talks about Sammer's principles of storytelling and building on them. Stareva created a 5-step process related to what he called breakthrough storytelling. And so we're trying to just break through what perception might already be there, what narrative is trying to be forced upon us. So we can work with breakthrough stories. Here's what we can expect that to be. So this model about breakthrough stories shows us that breakthrough stories need a reason to be told. So what do? We begin those stories with the why. Breakthrough stories need heroes. Well, sports are full of heroes. People tend to connect with individuals. Breakthrough stories start with conflict. In other words, the head versus the heart, the past versus future, failure versus success. Breakthrough stories also evoke emotions: surprise, love, grief, anger, but we're looking to basically evoke the positive emotions whenever we can. And then finally, breakthrough stories deploy viral power across many different converged media. So this is the storytelling process outlined in our textbook and was initiated by Stareva in 2014. So public relations strategic management begins when we determine what stakeholder relationships already exist or how they might be nurtured. So we determine those stakeholder relationships that we need to be focusing on, and then we need to determine how to prioritize them. So we need to determine whether the stakeholders are rights holders. In other words, do they have a right because of a broadcast distribution right? For instance, when a sport public relation organization is making decisions about which media properties will receive credentials to, say, cover a really big game, the reporters from a national property such as The Athletic will probably receive higher priority than those from a nearby small town publication or from a local blogger. So we're identifying and we are prioritizing. So we work within a sport public relations universe. We are at the center of that universe, but we are trying to influence the influencers. We're influencing the influencers in government relations, employer relations, investor relations, within our industry, community relations, particularly media relations are important in public relations, consumer relations as well. Now, sport marketing tends to focus basically on consumer relations, but sport public relations is working within this entire universe, and that's important because we're going to be looking at which particular stakeholders and groups of stakeholders that we are going to be dealing with, and that provides our reason for dealing with different programs and campaigns. So campaigns are different from programs because campaigns have a specific purpose in mind, and that's rather than general goals. Campaigns address a particular issue rather than the overall relationship with the public, and campaigns are periodic. In other words, they have distinct timelines rather than being sustained and ongoing. So let's talk about the public relations process. And your public relations campaign project is going to be organized this way. You're going to have 4 sections dealing with these 4 steps. And these are applicable to both programs and campaigns. But in our campaign, you will see that the outline is broken into these 4 steps. The first step is research, then planning, then execution, and then evaluation. So research is before planning, then comes planning, and then we want to be able to execute the plan, and then we need to evaluate whether or not we were successful. So research is the compass that guides the PR planning process. We need to identify issues, problems that exist, define the magnitude of those problems. We need to suggest strategies. We need to test creative strategies. And then we need to track the implementation and evaluate the results of the strategies. So identifying problems, identifying which are the key publics related to the problem or the issue. Step 2 is planning. It's the roadmap that guides planners toward a particular destination. It's driven by intended effects. And so at the end, we are going to be looking at the impacts that have happened. And so impact on a public may occur at any one or more levels. Awareness, which is exposure, retention, which is how they remember it. Cognition is the understanding of it. Attitudes, obviously, are how they feel about it. And then we need to understand that we can actually change behavior, and that is the most difficult. So the degree of difficulty in attaining those communication effects, the least difficult is achieving exposure or awareness, and the most difficult is changing behaviors. Step 2 consists of goals and objectives. Goals are more general, they are broader, they are idealistic. A public relations goal is simply a desired outcome of a program or campaign. And then the goal or objective, according to our book, should begin with the word to, T-O, and then be followed by an action verb, to accomplish, to grow. And then the goal or objective should define an outcome that is to result from the campaign. The goal or objective must specify the desired magnitude or level of the outcome. And finally, the goal or objective should define a date by which the outcome is to be obtained. Objectives are more narrow, they are more precise, and they are more measurable. But remember, some goals are more difficult to achieve than others. We are looking back to these things, these intended effects. Exposure, when audience members are exposed to the communicator's message, that's the only way that we can even begin to be effective. They also need to retain it, remember it. They need to understand it. They need to favorably evaluate it. And if we can get them to act differently in response to our message, we will be successful. Also, in step 2 in planning, we want to identify the key publics, and we do that in a number of ways. But one common approach is to target the influencers within a public. For example, college athletic programs which are promoting Heisman candidates may recognize the power of great opinion leaders within the mass media. For example, the personalities that are hosting ESPN's popular College Game Day show are big influencers in that, and we need to be focusing on identifying those publics and influencing them. And then we need to be sure that we're reaching those with a smart, connected, intended message. So the public relations planner must be well equipped to define the strategies to attain the organizational goals. It needs to be the right message tailored for the specific audience. We need to also connect the message to topics of interest among key publics. They need to be intentional. They need to be a story that they relate to, and somehow that could possibly cause them to reevaluate their behavior. Then, how are we going to distribute the message? That's called a channel, and the communication channel needs to be intelligently chosen. It could be one or more of these channels: the social media, digital media, legacy media, and direct contact. The primary determinants for which channel are the communication goals, the selected publics, the intended message, and most of all, very important, the available resources, the budget. You may have a grand plan for a big distribution channel, but is your senior level management going to approve that budget? So budget models differ between programs and campaigns. There are many low communication platforms such as social media available, but campaigns are funded through one of two ways according to our textbook, and this is very important. You'll need to include this in your public relations plan. The first way is by using whatever money is currently available in the regular budget. The second way is by gaining special allocation of funds based on the specific needs. In other words, you're going to ask for funds, additional funds specific to your campaign. To do that, you're going to have to demonstrate that you can earn return on the investment for the sport organization to gain more funding. This could be done monetarily or showing that you're going to gain benefits that are consistent with the organizational plan, such as growing a fan base, such as modifying behavior or gaining goodwill. And that's basically how step 2 relates to your sport public relation plan. Remember that you're going to have a certain budget. Maybe you're going to ask for a certain budget. The budget must be sufficient for the channels of distribution that you are going to use. These channels must support message delivery to your chosen stakeholders. And then the message delivery plan must fit within that certain budget. So that's step 2. Step 3 is execution. A well-crafted plan is of little value without careful execution. While planning tools may vary in complexity and format, most include dates, content selection, and the channels to be employed. So we plan the implementation, we schedule it, and we figure out which message distribution channels fit within our budget and effectively reach our intended audience. Step 4 is evaluation. That's the final step, and it is evaluating the effectiveness. And so just as practitioners have numerous options in the planning process, they also have numerous methods of assessing success. Was our campaign successful? Well, there are ways to find out. One framework for organizing these options includes assessment of 3 phases of communication according to our textbook. One is through organizational outputs. For example, the number of press releases, the number of posts that we put out. Now that is not alone the only thing that we need to assess, because it really doesn't focus on impact. It just focuses on output. So another way is through audience responses, the impressions. We call those in both marketing and public relations. So these metrics address how organizational communications are received. Outputs such as social media postings or news releases are of little value if they are not received, understood, and possibly embraced and even shared. And then finally, the highest order of evaluation is impact. What impact have we actually made? Impact on a public may occur at any one or more levels: awareness, retention, understanding, attitude, or behavior. We talked about those and repeated those several times because that's what we want to do. We want to have impact on our publics. And so the best way to assess impact is to make sure we've closed the loop. Have we gone back to the goals and objectives specified in the program or campaign, and have we evaluated the degree to which they were met? Keep in mind that the best goals and objectives are specific and measurable. So it's either issues or reputation, and what strategic implications exist for those issues. That's basically Chapter 2, or the basics of Chapter 2 in a nutshell. Now let's look specifically at your signature sport public relations campaign assignment. You are going to be responsible for a 6 to 8 page written document which identifies an issue or a misconception or a negative perception or something that you want to grow or influence or enhance the reputation. So we are going to follow that 4-step process that we just looked at. And you will follow that outline. And this whole outline from beginning to end, you need to make sure that you are including every detail of it And you must submit this, and you must follow the outline in order to pass this course. So we are going to do this in a scholarly manner. APA style 6th edition, minimum of 6 pages, but that does not include the title page and the reference page. You're going to develop a campaign which describes the strategies, actions, communication channels, and the publics targeted. So in the introduction, you're going to summarize, as it says here. You're going to generate a core value statement, and you're going to identify the publics associated. Step 1 is research, identifying and defining the problem, opportunity, or issue. This is usually done through surveys or that type of thing. But since we're dealing with either a fictional issue or actually one that you found that a sport organization is dealing with, it can be fictional or real. And then we're going to provide a campaign that helps us find a solution. So maybe, for example, a sport organization may learn that the sport venue is not viewed as family friendly. Then our campaign is going to be able to assess and solve. These are the things we're going to do in research. We're going to identify our publics and their demographic, and we're going to decide how the organization learned of the issue or the opportunity or the misconception. What data or research is involved? And why is this significant enough to warrant a public relations campaign? We're going to identify the key publics. We're going to prioritize those stakeholders or publics. And then we're going to research information regarding 2 or more recent successful sport public relation campaigns of others. What methodology, ideology, or best practice did they employ? You don't want to spend a lot of time writing this, but you want to refer to it. So I know that you have basically understood that maybe this was a problem that was dealt with, or at least find out that sport public relations departments are working in sport organizations and they are successfully completing public relations campaigns. So remember that in Chapter 1, the authors asserted that public relations offers 2 broad benefits, and this is what we need to keep in mind in our campaign. First, we advance the organization, and second, we protect the organization. Moving to Step 2, planning. What is the stated purpose or desired outcome of the campaign? This is followed by a series of objectives, and these are outlined in chapters 2 through 10, the rest of the book. And that's why we're starting now, but as we go through the chapters, you'll learn more about planning and tactics and that type of thing. So regarding the publics in Chapter 1, how will you persuade them? Describe the new image you're attempting to shape or reshape, and what story do you want to tell. Then we're going to list the specific strategies and tactics that we employ. How will we reach the publics? What will be the communication channels? Did we use any recent technologies? And who will assist us? Then we already talked about budget, what it will cost, and which of the 2 ways on page 45 will you use to fund it. So we're going to break down those segments, researching actual cost and the linked campaign benefits. So each of these steps, 1 through 4, are going to have a timeline, and we are going to organize our campaign with these 4 steps, and each step will have a timeline. So step 3 is execution. We're taking action. How will we implement the campaign? That basically bleeds over from the tactics that we will be using in step 2. We're communicating. How will we ensure that we are reaching the desired publics? We're going to include a tagline. And step 4 is evaluation. How will we know if we have succeeded? What means of measurement or tracking, according to page 46, will you be using? It could be more than one. And how will you know if you have advanced or protected the brand and met the goals that you set out when you started planning? So we're going to have a conclusion, a summary, and remember our reference page and title page in addition to our 6 to 8 pages, and they will be in APA style. There you have it. It's worth 40 points, and it is required. It is the signature public sport Sport Public Relations campaign assignment. It is now assigned. In addition, we have 2 worksheet quizzes this week and a discussion assignment, and the PR technology assignment this week is on bit.ly. If you have any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to contact me at any time.